I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised.
In Africa, what's called AIDS is simply relabeling other diseases. People are ill from malnutrition, which causes immune deficiency, malaria, which causes immune deficiency, TB, which affects your immune system.
For years now, we've all heard how prevalent AIDS in Africa is. I know I have. But did you know it's not really the same thing that we call AIDS here? Have you ever heard of the Bangui definition?
A definition was arrived at as a result of a World Health Organization sponsored conference in October of 1985. The Bangui definition of an AIDS case in Africa is based on 4 clinical symptoms: high fever, a persistent cough, loose stools for 30 days, and a 10% loss of body weight over a 2-month period.
Any person with severe starvation has AIDS regardless of HIV positive or HIV negative.
There are countries in Africa, in South Africa, for example, the president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, he refused to allow AZT and the other anti-retroviral drugs into his country for years because he did his own research and he found out, first of all, how dangerous they were, and he also did not believe HIV was the cause of AIDS in his country.
Last year you were reported as saying in Parliament that you were concerned about the giving of AZT to pregnant mothers. Why were you concerned?
Well, because lots of questions had been raised around the question of the toxicity of the drug. It was very serious. We have a responsibility as a government to determine matters of public health, and therefore we can take decisions. We have to take decisions that impact directly on human beings. And it seemed to me that where doubts had been raised, questions had been raised around these toxicity questions, and the efficacy even of AZT.
The reason that only one drug has been made available, AZT, because it's the only drug that thus far has been shown in scientifically controlled trials to be safe and effective.
That it was necessary again to go into these matters because it wouldn't sit easily on one's conscience to discover that you had been warned that there could be danger, and nevertheless you went ahead and said, despite the danger, let's dispense these drugs.
Some AIDS doctors say that the evidence is overwhelming that HIV is the cause of AIDS and that AZT is of benefit. What is your comment on that?
Well, I say that why don't we bring all points of view about those matters together, let them sit around the table, discuss all of this, produce such evidence as there may be, and let's see what the outcome of all of that discussion is, which is why this international panel that we're talking about, they may very well be correct. But I think that if they are correct and they are convinced about their correctness, it ought to be, it would be a good thing for them to demonstrate to those who are wrong that they are wrong.
And there's a big fight over sending these very lethal anti-retroviral drugs to Africa. I mean, Bill Gates is in on it now.
Oh, boy. Well, that makes sense.
How do you feel about the reaction of some of your country's leading virologists and intellectuals to your position?
I get the sense that, as I was saying earlier, that we've all of us been educated into one school of thought. I'm not surprised at all that you would find, I'm quite sure, among the overwhelming majority of scientists in this field in this country, people who would hold a particular point of view because that's all they were exposed to. This other point of view, which is, I think, part of what is frightening, this alternative point of view, in a sense, has been blacked out. It must not be heard, mustn't be seen. I mean, even that's the demand now. Why is Thabo Mbeki talking to discredited scientists, giving them legitimacy? It's a very worrying thing. that anybody can say today, in today's world, that there is a point of view that is prohibited, that's banned, that they are heretics who must be burnt at the stake. And it's all said in the name of science and health, can't be right.
Starting in 2002, at the International AIDS Conference in Barcelona, Spain, even the AIDS establishment began to admit that more than half of the AIDS deaths are due to the side effects of these drugs from organ failure, mainly liver failure. So this whole anti-retroviral drug scene has also gotten out of hand and is killing more people than AIDS and HIV.
The biggest reason for people who are HIV positive to die nowadays is liver failure. Liver failure is not an AIDS-defining condition. Liver failure is, however, a common side effect of AIDS drugs.
Safe and effective.
Not only was AZT worthless in preventing cancer or in treating cancer, but in fact it caused it. Iatrogenic means caused, an illness caused by medicine, medical practice, or by doctors. With regard to AIDS, there are many iatrogenic phenomena. Certainly the AIDS drugs, not only ACT, but all of the ones after that, including very much the protease inhibitors and all of the other nucleoside analogs, are harmful, and the AIDS drugs, probably since the late 80s, are the number one cause of so-called AIDS.
Safe and effective.
One of the best defenses of the AIDS establishment is telling you that it's far too complex for you to understand. You can't possibly understand it. Don't try, just trust us. And that has been very successful so far. At some point in time, and I hope it's not in the too distant future, we will be looking back on AIDS and saying, how could we have been bamboozled for so long? How come nobody spoke up?
Fucking stoned.